Ethan Clarke had always believed himself to be a rational man. He was not given to flights of fancy, nor did he easily succumb to the mysteries of the unknown. That night, however, as he stood beneath the flickering yellow lights of Marrowfield Station, rationality seemed a poor shield against the creeping unease that gathered in the corners of his vision. The countryside around him was a black expanse, broken only by the hard geometry of the platform, the battered benches, and the hum of electricity overhead. A single moth circled the light, casting frantic shadows on the cracked concrete, and the digital departure board buzzed quietly, its glow painting Ethan's features in sickly blue. He had missed the last train. That much was certain. The disappointment had already settled in his gut, a dull stone of regret and resignation. He told himself he would wait until morning. He would make the best of it, as he always did. But then, as the minutes staggered by and the cold pressed deeper into his bones, something shifted. The departure board, which had been blank and static, suddenly flickered. Pixels rearranged themselves, numbers and letters bleeding together, then resolving into a message so ordinary and yet so impossible that Ethan could only stare. Special service, Platform 6, departure 12:03 a.m. The seconds ticked past in silence. Ethan frowned. Marrowfield Station had always been small, its 5 platforms more than enough to accommodate the trickle of rural passengers. Yet the board insisted, Platform 6. His eyes searched the length of the platform, the empty benches, the shuttered kiosks, with their faded advertisements and dust-streaked glass. He drifted through the concourse, footsteps echoing in the darkness, past the silent ticket machines and the memory of bustle that had once filled the space. At the farthest end, where the light grew thin and the air colder, he found it. A gate, chained and padlocked, behind which a stairway descended into shadow. The sign above was so old the paint had all but peeled away, the number lost to time. Yet the chill that raced down Ethan's spine told him he had found what he was not meant to find. He glanced once more at the flickering board, as if seeking permission, or perhaps a reason not to go. But the night pressed in, thick and expectant, and Ethan ducked beneath the chain. The stairwell was narrow, the walls damp and glistening as though the earth itself wept. Each step sent a hollow echo spiraling upward, and somewhere in the depths, water dripped in a slow, insistent rhythm. The air changed as he descended, cooler, heavy with the scent of rust and ancient stone. The sounds of the world above faded, replaced by a low drone that seemed to come from beneath his feet, as if the ground itself vibrated with anticipation. It was as though the memory of Marrowfield Station, with its familiar lights and empty platforms, was dissolving behind him. Down here, time warped and stretched, each heartbeat louder than the last. His hand trailed the slick wall, grounding himself in the physical. But the further he went, the less certain he became that he would ever ascend again. At the bottom, the stairway opened onto a vast, forgotten platform. The tile beneath his feet was uneven and cracked, weeds pushing through the seams in defiance of the years. Flickering lamps hung at odd intervals, their light casting long, uncertain shadows that seemed to pulse with every breath Ethan took. And there, waiting with the patience of the dead, was a train. It was unlike any train Ethan had ever seen. The carriages were long and battered, their paint peeling in great curling strips. The windows were dark, revealing only the faintest suggestion of movement within. The doors stood open, wide and inviting, as though the train had been expecting him all along. He hesitated only a moment before stepping aboard. The metal floor groaned beneath his weight, and the stale air inside pressed against his skin like damp velvet. Every seat was filled. Passengers sat row upon row, dressed in clothing from another era. High collars, tweed suits, hats that had not been in fashion for a century or more. Their faces were pale, their skin almost translucent in the sickly light. They sat perfectly still, hands folded in their laps, eyes locked straight ahead, unblinking, unmoving. Ethan's breath quickened. He walked the aisle, searching for an empty seat, but none presented itself. The passengers did not so much as glance at him, their stillness oppressive, as though the act of movement had been entirely forgotten. The only sound was the slow, synchronized breathing of 100 chests, too unified, too precise to be natural. At the far end of the carriage, an old-fashioned conductor moved with deliberate steps. His uniform was immaculate, though faded, and his cap cast his features into shadow. He stopped before Ethan, gloved hand extended. In his palm rested a ticket. Ethan took it, the paper rough and cool against his skin. One side was blank, marked only by a smear of ancient ink. The other side bore 2 words, stark in their simplicity: one way. He looked up, but the conductor had already turned, gliding away, silent as a dream. Ethan's heart pounded, a low, insistent rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the rumble beneath his feet. Without warning, the train lurched forward. Through the grime-streaked windows, Ethan expected to see the countryside, the gentle rise and fall of fields beneath the moon. Instead, there were only tunnels, endless, curving, lined with doorways that led to nowhere. In every doorway stood a figure, impossibly pale, their eyes fixed on the passing train. Their gazes were hungry, unblinking, as though waiting for something, someone, to step from the carriage and into the darkness beyond. Whispers rose around him, layered and indistinct, the words slipping through the cracks in his understanding. The sound of the wheels on the rails was hypnotic, a relentless clatter that blurred the boundaries between waking and dream. Ethan clutched the ticket, feeling the weight of its promise, its warning. He moved through the carriage seeking comfort, explanation, some sign that this was not all some elaborate hallucination. The passengers remained unmoved, each frozen in their private reverie, their eyes locked on a point beyond the horizon. The air grew colder, the lights flickered, and the tunnel outside deepened, swallowing the last vestiges of the world Ethan had known. At last, he found the conductor again, standing at the junction between carriages. Ethan summoned his courage, forced his voice to steady. "Where is this train going?" The conductor did not respond. Instead, he raised his head. In the dim glow, Ethan saw that where eyes and mouth should have been, there was only smooth, unbroken skin. The face was featureless, unreadable, a mask of flesh. Ethan's grip tightened on the ticket. He looked down, and the words had changed. Return, never. The train shuddered, the whispers swelled, and the tunnel outside seemed to contract, pressing inward from all sides. The passage of time became meaningless. Days, years, centuries passing in the flicker of a lamp, the beat of a heart. At last, the train began to slow. The screech of brakes was deafening, a protest against the end of motion. The carriage lights flared, then dimmed to a deep, unnatural red. Outside, a cavernous station spread before them, its ceiling lost in shadow, its walls pulsing with a crimson glow. Thousands of silhouettes waited on the platform, row upon row of still figures, their faces turned toward the arriving train. As the doors slid open, every head turned in perfect unison, their eyes, 1,000 shards of darkness, fixing on Ethan. They had been waiting for him. The whispers became a chant, a single word repeated over and over, overlapping and relentless. Ethan stepped from the train, the ticket burning in his palm. The air was thick with expectation, the weight of unspoken stories pressing in from all sides. He wanted to scream, to run, to wake from the nightmare. But the world had already shifted, and there was no path back through the tunnels, no stairway leading up. The past and present collided in the red-lit station, time folding in on itself. Ethan was home, and the watchers closed in, their faces blank, their eyes endless. When morning came, Marrowfield Station was once again bathed in gentle sunlight. The birds sang, the wind rustled through the grass, and the world moved on, indifferent to the secrets that lay below. A station master making his rounds found an old ticket on a bench, its edges curled and yellowed with age. The date read 1913, and the name, written in a careful, looping script, was Ethan Clark. No one remembered Platform 6. No one spoke of the stairway or the train that waited in the dark. The ticket was filed away, another oddity in the collection of forgotten things. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled and the lights flickered, the digital board would flash with a message that made no sense at all. Special service, Platform 6, departure 12:03 a.m. And those who saw it would shiver and look away and hurry home, leaving the station to its shadows and its secrets. Some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, their answers buried in the tunnels below, where the watchers wait and the train never returns.